Good afternoon. Thank you all for being in the room. We are now actually online. Thank you very much for being with us for this higher education roundtable that belongs to the 5th EC2U Forum. We have also some colleagues connected, and actually all the speakers are now connected online, and hopefully, yes, indeed, I see that you see them above me on the big screen, and I can also look at them on the side screen for me. So apologies for the colleagues online. If sometimes you see only my profile, is because I look at you and your presentations. So thank you all for being connected. Thank you all for being in the room here. We have students, we have colleagues. That's very nice to see you all here for this roundtable on higher education. Let me just give you a little bit of introductory remarks. It is now actually a tradition to have at each of the EC2U forum a specific session where we debate on hot topics in the higher education scene. And this is what we call the EC2U Higher Education Roundtable, where we also have a tradition to invite other sister alliances. And today we will have representatives from some other alliances. We also usually invite keynote speakers from different stakeholders. And again, you will see we have a wonderful panel of distinguished speakers. I was mentioning indeed that we want also to debate with you online, you here in the room. So for the people online, actually on the YouTube channel, you have the possibility to post questions. So we will at some point see if there are questions to our speakers. Also, you in the room here, we will have some time for debate. So when it will be the moment, you will be asked to raise your hands, and there will be a microphone coming towards you. And of course, the colleagues online will be asked to respond and to comment. They can also actually question among themselves. So it's really meant to be a completely open debate. Because indeed, we see that the alliances that are really at the core of the higher education in Europe. This is a very important initiative indeed that the European Commission has launched, and EC2U is very proud to have been selected during the pilot phase, but probably the colleague representing the Commission will say a few words about this in a few minutes. But for us, indeed, it is very important to that we are with the other alliances pioneering and paving the way towards the university of the future. And among the important topics, the higher education roundtable is there to debate, as I said. For instance, in Pavia, last spring, we talked about a very important initiative, which is the Erasmus without paper, and for you in particular, the students, the European student card that is going to be developed everywhere in Europe, hopefully soon. And 1 year ago, when we had the higher education roundtable in Salamanca, we had also a very important topic, which was about how to measure, how to assess the impact, the potential impact of alliances. And there also we had a very interesting discussion. And of course, this is still an open debate. For this forum here in Iași, we have decided to put under the debate how to foster green mobility. And we have already seen in the meetings that we had, internal meetings for the governance, meetings where students are also represented and active, that we all realize that we are now facing a tension, which is that on the one hand, we all realize that a mobility, and in particular a physical mobility, can really make a difference in a student lifetime. I personally did a mobility during my studies, and I think it really just transformed my life. And every time we discuss with students who, for instance, performed an Erasmus mobility, they always say that after that they are not the same. So we know that this is very important to foster mobility. But of course, we are now all really in front of the climate crisis. And we can see now the tension between indeed fostering a lot of mobilities, which is exactly at the core of the alliances, but at the same time, how to reconcile this with this very important challenge. So this is exactly what we would like to debate today. And we have a first set of invited speeches that will come from, let's say, either policymakers or networks at the European level that really bring a sort of European policy view on this topic. We will have a first round of questions to the first speakers. And in the second part, we have invited sister alliances to also present what they are doing to sort of try to respond or even succeeding in responding to this tension, how to foster green mobility. And we will have also an interesting, we believe, interesting study case for the EC2U Alliance through what is called the Défi Coimbra or Coimbra Challenge, where some of our students did actually perform a very interesting mobility only using sustainable development or let's say green mobility. So without further ado, let's move to the first invited speakers. And I'm very happy now to see that Mr. Vito Borelli from the DG Iasi at the European Commission, so the Direction General for the Education and Culture, to be connected. So I hope we can hear you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. So the floor is yours for about 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. And it's a pleasure to be here today to talk about a very important issue these days, which is the green mobility, which can be intended in many ways, but that's exactly the purpose of my intervention today, to try to elaborate a bit on the different aspects of the green in the student mobility area. Well, the theme, as I said before, is very, very relevant these days when a series of unexpected and I would say unpredictable emergencies have strongly affected our way of life, our daily habits, starting, of course, from the COVID pandemic to the war in Ukraine, and to some extent related energy crisis or the inflation, the economic crisis, and so on and so forth. So a number of circumstances, of emergencies that have completely modified our way also of intending the world and our lives. But I must say that in these very difficult circumstances, the European Commission has been able to respond timely and effectively to these new challenging problems. 2 years ago, with the pandemic crisis, the European Commission took the opportunity of this very serious situation for member states, this economic crisis that the pandemic has produced, by designing a revolutionary instrument, which was Next Generation EU, that has been converted then at national level in the recovery and resilience national plans that are contributing really to restoring some economic situation which were very badly affected. After this, I mean, we had the war in Ukraine, the crisis in Ukraine, and a few months after, the European Commission launched a very important mechanism called the REPowerEU, an instrument intended, on the one hand, to reduce our energy dependence on Russia, but at the same time also to accelerate the use of renewable energies. Even very recently, in her speech on the State of the Union, the President von der Leyen recalled the importance also to, in a way, accompany our measures against Russia, our sanctions packages, and our support to Ukraine with new action that are aimed at relaunching and accelerating the energy transition. And she announced the launch of the European Hydrogen Bank. Why I'm saying that? I'm saying that because all these elements very strongly affect also, in general, people's mobility and in particular students' mobility. In fact, I think that in this moment in time, we have to be very open-minded, very creative, and think on how we should also in the area of education try to propose alternative solutions that can be also environmental friendly and can help also to tackle very important elements that are ahead of us, and we want also through education and research to try and find answers to these new challenges. The green dimension of Erasmus Plus has been already included in the new program starting in 2021, and the green element is one of the 4 transversal priorities of the program, together with other priorities like inclusion. Of course, we are making a lot for inclusion in the program to open it also to the students who normally wouldn't have the means or the preparation to participate in the program. We have another priority, which is the digital participation. We know that digital and green go very much hand in hand, and before our coordinator recalled the importance of initiatives that the European Commission is pursuing, like the Erasmus student card, which is intended to become digital and so replace all the paper that is necessary to implement mobility abroad. And we have the Erasmus without paper initiatives, even that aimed at eliminating paper in the relations between universities. So certainly inclusion and digital are 2 very important principles behind the new Erasmus Plus program. But the one about green can be developed, elaborated on several levels. In fact, the first one is the prioritization of the green transition in Erasmus Plus cooperation activities. And this is very much based on a bottom-up approach in which education institutions and organizations may submit learning, mobility, and cooperation projects addressing climate objectives. The Erasmus Plus programs is fundamental to support bottom-up action and of education providers. And in 2022, at least 15% of the activities funded under Erasmus Plus have been in that specific range and have amounted to around 600 million euros. The second level of implementation, of application of the green priority concerns the environmental sustainability and the fight against global warming, which has been set as one of the horizontal priorities for the selection of cooperation projects in the new Erasmus Plus program. This allows, in a way, giving priority to projects which focus specifically on the development of competencies in various environmental sustainability relevant sectors, developing green sectorial skills strategies, methodologies, and future-oriented curricula that better meet the needs of individuals regarding environmental sustainability. This priority also enables the program to contribute to another initiative that was launched by President von der Leyen last year, which is the new European Bauhaus and the Education for Climate Coalition, for instance, via the specific strand, the Partnerships for Innovation. And finally, I would like to conclude by recalling probably the most obvious way of transforming Erasmus Plus in a more green activity. This is, of course, the usage of more carbon neutral means of transport that facilitate the use, for instance, of rails instead of planes. This is, of course, something that we cannot impose, of course, also for a question of geographical fairness. There are countries that are geographically placed in areas that are too remote for the usage of trains. I'm thinking of the islands, of course, like Malta, Cyprus, Ireland, that necessarily have to use planes to move to other countries. But of course, what we are trying to do is to introduce some financial incentives, like extra economic help for the travel costs for those participating using low carbon means of transport, together with the possibility of having more days for traveling, because of course trains are not as fast as planes. So there are certainly ideas, initiatives that we will continue to put forward also in the future years. But of course, we have to be very open, also thanks to the other priorities, which is the digital one, to continue to imagine continuation also of the hybrid mobilities, in which the distance learning in a way replaces to a certain extent the physical mobility. Of course, we will have to keep tuned, to stay tuned to what happens in the world, because our resilience, which has become a keyword in these years, is exactly the capacity to adapt our programs and our actions to the evolving circumstances. So we should be, again, very flexible and very open to new hypotheses, to new possibilities. And I think that today it's very good occasions to discuss among ourselves about these possibilities, these ideas that can improve the program also for the future. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be glad to hear also your introduction.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vito, for indeed giving this broad overview of all the initiatives that are going in the same direction. Indeed, not just, let's say, what is directly targeted to green mobility, but we'll probably come back during the discussion on indeed maybe this aspect of education to sustainability as well, although it's not directly, let's say, the topic, but it's probably also very interesting to approach it. So thank you very much. So the next speaker, so as you understood, that we will first have directly the first three speakers, and then we open the floor to discussion. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. Now it's also a pleasure to welcome the next invited speaker, Emmanuel Gardon. You are the director of the Coimbra Group office in Brussels. Good afternoon, Emmanuel, and you will provide another example of what can be organized at the level of a large-scale network, such as the Coimbra Group. And the title of your presentation is Coimbra Group Perspectives on the Uptake of Train Travel and Virtual Exchange in International Students' Mobilities. And now we see your presentation soon in full presentation mode.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to Iasi, to you for your invitation. Let me go back to the first slide. Yes. Oops. So thank you very much for your invitation. As associated partner to this alliance, we are extremely pleased always to share our knowledge and expertise, but also to learn from you. So it's always a great pleasure. And I think my presentation will be very closely connected to what Vito has just expressed, because for us, indeed, when we reimagine mobility, it's about green mobility and digital mobility. So Vito, you said that they go hand by hand, and it's the topic of my presentation. I'll present how for our association, we see the uptake of train travel and virtual exchange in international students' mobilities. And why do we think we have something to say about it? So Coimbra Group, we are a network of 40 universities, one of the oldest European network. And you may not be aware that over 16% of all Erasmus mobilities across Europe are to a Coimbra Group university or from a Coimbra Group university. So we believe that On the evolution of the Erasmus program, our voice counts. We've also always been pioneers in advising the program for its future evolution. And this is how we work as a network. Half of our activity is based on exchanging experience and developing joint activities between our 40 members. And half of our activity is about monitoring and influencing European policies on the 4 topics that you can see on the right side. And obviously, these 2 activities of our association are closely interconnected and nurture each other. How did we experience green mobility with our members? We decided to set up a pilot program with the Eurail company, which is the company behind the Interrail passes. And you can see here the advertisement for our joint campaign. I'll tell you a bit more about how all this started. So, as Vito was saying, the European Commission had announced that the future program would be greener and more digital, more inclusive. And our members had started exchanging about how do they implement their own institution support for encouraging sustainable transportation for the Erasmus students and staff. We started with that data, which in 2019 was informed by the Erasmus by Train initiative, that 75% of Erasmus students takes the plane and not any other transportation mean to travel to and from the exchange destinations. So we've had many months of internal discussions, in particular within our academic exchange and mobility working group. And we decided we would take advantage both of the European Year of the Rail back in 2021, but also advantage of having an office in Brussels, bringing together 40 universities and having the possibility to exchange with neighbors in Brussels, which is the Association of European Railway Companies. And we had a triangle exchange, so between our members at the central level and with the Eurail company, discussing also results from a survey that Eurail conducted with the students, with the Erasmus Student Network. And out of this, so we had, for instance, members who were very in advance on these topics. Uppsala University was already giving some significant financial support to their students who would choose a sustainable transportation mode instead of the flight. So out of these discussions, we decided to run a pilot program that consisted in offering Coimbra Group Erasmus students and staff a discount of 20% on the purchase of an Interrail pass. And they had the possibility to buy more than one. As you can see here, they could select, the discount was applied to all the scope of Interrail passes, second, first class, etc. And as of June 2021, when we formalized the agreement, 28 of our members, so 28 European universities, comprehensive universities, decided to take part in the pilot program and have their students and staff going on Erasmus exchange benefit from that pilot. And you may be surprised, but we also had our UK members on board directly among these 28 participating universities. Beyond that, and connecting also to what Vito presented about education for sustainable development, we would also offer complementary Interrail pass to the participating universities should they wish to organize a contest, an event where students would be encouraged to discuss about sustainable transportation modes. So here you have an idea of this experimentation. We opened 2 purchase windows, and in total, there were 336 students and staff from our universities who purchased a total of 359 passes. So it's quite a significant pilot. You can see that in the first and second windows, the top buyers by country were mainly from Germany, obviously with their geographical position in the middle of Europe, but also from Italy, UK, Austria, Spain, Finland, and Norway. These were the countries where we had the most number of purchasers, and this might be explained by very different factors regarding the geographical location, the extra financial.
This meeting is being recorded.
Offered by the university on top of that discount, so very different reasons. I had a few times, so I'm not going into more details about the experimentation itself, but we also accompanied this campaign with a quantitative survey. And between December 21 and January 22, we circulated an online survey to the 28 universities, targeting everyone, so not only the beneficiaries from the pilot program. We received a bit more than 400 answers, and we asked questions about their travel behavior, if they were aware of extra funding offered by the university for sustainable travel during Erasmus Day, their opinion about this pilot and how we could improve it. So very briefly, 8 in 10 respondents considered the environmental footprint when choosing international transportation options, not necessarily talking about studying exchange, but when we looked into these respondents who had benefited from the pilot program, this even increased. And obviously the train preference increases for participants who go to a destination which is not separated by sea from their home country, or which is easily accessible. We have also advertised a lot about the possibility to use the pass to discover the country where they would spend their semester. And here you can see some interesting quotes that we have extracted from the survey about the perception from young people, because most of the respondents were below the age of 25, about such pilot, and I'll not read them, but this gives you an idea about how the program was perceived. As I said, we always work both on cooperation among our members, but with the idea to also influence European policies and programs. So in this case, we believe that that program, that pilot, is very significant in the sense as it is the first experience of this scale. There's been lots of campaigns asking policymakers to encourage students to go by train on the Erasmus, but it's the first experimentation that has taken place. The survey and the success of the purchase has confirmed a growing demand for sustainable travel solutions, both from our universities, because we consider that 28 universities out of 40 was a success, and from the students. And we hope that this pilot will now inspire changes in the future EU programs. We've been asked many times this year to present the pilot, to present the lesson learned by the European Parliament in particular. Some members of the Parliament have presented to the European Commission a proposal for a much bigger pilot, which would be worth €2 million and would cover not only higher education Erasmus actions, but also other levels of education. So we keep in touch with them and continue nurturing the advocacy for a bigger program. And we really hope that all our universities, but beyond Coimbra Group, all higher education institutions in Europe will at some point have this opportunity to provide with their students and staff with more incentives to go sustainable when they travel for their Erasmus. And I wanted very briefly to also present our perspectives on virtual exchange, because indeed we believe that when we think about reimagining mobility and greener mobility, it's also very much connected to virtual exchange, internationalization at home. So we've participated in the past to some Erasmus projects, which training, research resources are still available, and we encourage you to go and have a look at these recommendations. And I'll go slightly more focused on recommendations and observations we've made with a big survey we conducted in 2021, which I think gives also some food for thought for the roundtable, in the sense that most of our universities have evolved their international strategies, their international goals with the challenges they've faced with the 2 years pandemic. And interestingly, our survey reveals that there's a shift focus from numbers of international students and staff on campuses to more meaningful, more content-centered internationalization. And in our universities, but also beyond, internationalization at home has emerged as a crucial concept. The survey also provided some recommendations for policymakers and about virtual mobility, which has become increasingly popular. Most of responding Cranbrook universities have agreed in this survey that international cooperation should include the development of digital communication tools and virtual formats, but always as complementary to physical mobility. There's this consensus that it should remain complementary, and I think this loops a bit our loop in the sense that we believe it's not the Erasmus students and mobility who should be blamed for their behavior when they take a plane, but it's a much more complex program. So if we come back to the digital mobility, the call from our members to policymakers is to provide, to be also imaginative here when supporting internationalization at home and virtual exchange. Very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So we'll come back to some of the messages that you've delivered, like there are clear examples. Thank you indeed. There are clear examples of seed for change. I very much enjoyed this idea, and also a virtual exchange can be part of the solution, not replacing fully, but part of the solution. Thank you. So it's now also a pleasure to welcome the third invited speaker, Juan Rayon, who is the president of the Erasmus Student Network. And you know, Juan, that ESN local sections are very much engaged in our EC2 Alliance. So it's a double pleasure to have you here. And you will talk about Green Erasmus, how to make sustainable, inclusive, and impactful mobility a reality for all. Juan, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Ludovic. It's a great pleasure to be here. So thank you also to the Alliance, both for the invitation and also, as you said, for the great collaboration that you have with our ESN local sections, and in general for the commitment to student engagement and impactful internationalization. So, and also, of course, a great pleasure to be here with Vito and Emmanuel in this very interesting panel. I'm going to share my screen. So I think that you should be able to see it now. Yes. I'm going to be talking indeed about reimagining mobility, as the title of our panel says. And I'm going to start by explaining a bit what's the approach of the Erasmus Student Network to green mobility. How do we perceive the topic of green mobility? Actually, it's quite similar to how we perceive the building blocks of our strategy towards learning mobility in general. First, mobility should be always about improving access, and the same for green mobility. We should make sure that as many students as possible can benefit from this opportunity, because in the end, green travel is also an opportunity, and green mobility is an opportunity. So regardless of their background, who they are, or they come from, they can access greener mobilities, both when it comes to going to the mobility destination, but also during the mobility itself. And then we also believe that green mobility is a great opportunity to increase the impact of mobility, to make sure that students develop those green competences that both Vito and Emmanuel also mentioned during their interventions, right? Because in the end, we believe that the mobility experience is one of the most transformative things that a student can do. So if we also build on that experience to help students to gain more competences, we're actually killing two birds with one stone. We like to follow always the same process when it comes to putting together new initiatives. We always start with assessment, because it's good to talk about what students want, but it's better to ask them, because normally they are very good at saying what they need and expressing their needs and challenges. So we have carried out a number of surveys: Green Erasmus, the Erasmus was Green Report with the partners, the ESN Interrail survey that also Emmanuel mentioned, and also we have asked questions in the ESN survey. Then we have moved to the part related to building capacity and doing action on the ground. And this is the benefit of being a very big network, that you can activate local sections from all over Europe to carry out more sustainable initiatives. And in that regard, we're doing trainings, we're preparing materials that hopefully all students in Europe will be able to use. And finally, also something that is quite important to achieve systemic change, which is the policy dimension, which kind of things we can change in the program, in how we organize mobilities, so green mobility becomes more of a reality for all students. So I'm going to try to follow this cycle to explain you the main things that we're doing. Our main project in the field, it's indeed Green Erasmus. We are very happy because Green Erasmus started as our project, but now it has become more of a concept. So that's very good PR. Hopefully the evaluators in the commission will also like that. But basically, we started this project with three main objectives: decreasing the negative impact of the Erasmus Plus program, empower students to be the agents of change, and in general, increasing the importance of sustainable internationalism in Europe. We deliver several intellectual outputs, now also called work packages, and the main one is indeed this Green Erasmus research, which we believe is a very important piece of research to understand the needs of students. But we're also working on materials that both students and higher education institutions can use. So hopefully after my presentation, all the participants, all the students there in the meeting can go to the Green Erasmus webpage, surf a bit, and check things that are relevant for you in your local communities and in your universities. So what does the data tell us about the student experience related to green mobility? The first one, the first part of this data presentation is about consumer habits and how they are affected by certain factors. Unsurprisingly, on mobility, the main factor for students to decide about the kind of things that they buy and use, it's indeed the price, because we all know that the finance dimension is a very important factor in a student life, even more in the life of an exchange student. So we know that even if students are willing to be sustainable, as we saw before, price can also act as a barrier to start acquiring those sustainable behaviors. So also something to consider at the university level. How can we break that barrier and make sure that we make it easier for students to do things like maybe getting a bike on exchange or doing certain things that are in line with the green objectives of the program? Then we also see something very interesting, which is that naturally, and maybe not necessarily due to the green awareness, but just because of how the mobility experience works, students do acquire more sustainable habits on exchange. I think that this is also mostly connected with the fact that on mobility, students are, in most cases, for the first time in their lives, living alone. So then they start to reflect a bit more about many of the habits that they have. And they start to, for instance, bring their own bag when they go shopping, to buy more used items, to even slightly, but to buy more fair trade products. And, you know, we can see that there's a clear trend when it comes to the acquisition of these habits that the students take during mobility, right? So we can say that there is a change there and that we can build on that change, fostering more reflection, so students understand that these habits need to become more long-lasting. What is the impact of each of the things that they are doing and how they can be part of a more systemic type of change that also involves reflecting on their universities, their local communities, their governments, etc. Then when it comes to the transport, I think that Emmanuel also covered this data very well, but we see that the majority of students indeed go by plane to the mobility destination. And I think that in this part, it's really interesting to reflect on what are the mobility flows that the students, you know, like that the Erasmus program has. And in the end, most of the mobilities in Erasmus Plus happen between the 5 or 6 biggest countries in Europe that are not that far apart. So we believe that one very important step is to start promoting green mobility, especially among those that can access it easier. If a student is going from Spain to France, if the financial conditions are there, it's actually not that difficult to go by train or by bus, but it's just that we need that financial push, that financial support to break that cycle. Which is also very interesting is that when it comes to the choices during the mobility, we also start to see how those sustainable habits start to emerge more and more. And we can see that, for instance, when it comes to the tourism patterns, as you know, discovering cultural heritage and traveling during the mobility experience is one of the key features, right, of the student life for Erasmus students. And we clearly see a shift between at home and on mobility. This can be partly due to sustainable awareness, but also because normally students tend to travel more, to neighboring countries or to closer destinations, etc. So in our opinion, what we need to do is to also build on this and to make sure that we explain to students, hey, did you have the opportunity to reflect on how is rail infrastructure? Was it easy to travel sustainable? Which challenges did you encounter? Which kind of support measures did you need? Because then we will be empowering students to also continue with these measures after their mobilities. When it comes to daily commuting, also the data, it can be can seem shocking. It actually makes a lot of sense because, as you know, students, when they are on mobility, they tend to get their accommodation closer to the university if that's possible. So this is why they walk more, they use more bikes, etc., right? Because this change in their day-to-day life can also result on more sustainable habits. And then also building on something that Emmanuel mentioned, which is this idea of Interrail for students. When we did our survey in 2020, we saw that the students were actually quite interested in these kind of opportunities, right? Because we presented it in a very broad way, asking them, would you be interested in an adapted Interrail ticket? And indeed, they say yes. They say massively that they would be interested, but the current prices are too expensive. Also because of the opportunity cost, the related cost going to travel, etc. But the interest in this type of traveling is indeed there if we manage to find the adequate resources to support it. Then, just to show a bit more the kind of factors that drive decisions of students, you can see also that the time taken to complete the journey in the daily commuting is the decisive factor, very similar to the main factor to decide on which type of means of transportation students are going to use to go to their mobility. We always see that price and also time are key factors to make those decisions. So then what we need to think is which kind of push factors can we use to compensate and to convince students to travel differently. Now, just some data points on the perception that the students have, that international students have on sustainability. The majority of students, and I'm sure that if we ask the room, the results will be very similar, are either very concerned and fairly concerned about climate change, about the challenges that this poses for the whole of society. And also the majority of them believe in the impact that individuals can have, which is quite important. This question, this data point is quite related with another data point from our ESL survey that we basically asked 1 year later. And we're very happy to see that environment and climate change is the field in which students gain more interest during their mobilities. So already, without many dedicated measures, because you need to think that this survey was carried out even before the beginning of the current program, so by the end of the previous program, students were already acquiring more and more interest in climate change and sustainability. So if we manage to put in place measures that turn this interest into actions that they can do, more volunteering, green traveling, we're going to be able to create this multiplier effect and to build those green skills that the students need to navigate the climate crisis. Unfortunately, what we also saw in all our surveys is this attitude-behavior gap. Students are concerned, students identify the problems, but unfortunately, the financial barriers and many cases the administrative barriers are just too unsurmountable. It's too difficult for them, especially to try sustainable, and therefore we need to think about possible measures to support them. Finally, when it comes to the role of universities, students are very much aware, as we saw before, they care, they know the problem. I think that sustainability has become the main topic of our era, so students do know, but not all of them feel that they get the right information from the university. It's also something to consider. What can be the role of IROs, of academics? What can be the role of university services advising students? How can we use the mobility experience to give even more relevance to this topic? Then, just to finalize, what are our main proposals to foster green mobility? Now we found out about all the problems, but what are things that we can do? Well, they will not come as a surprise, I think. The first one is to rethink green travel support. So many of you have probably seen that we have a petition for a revamped green Erasmus top-up to give more financial support to students. We are advocating for around 250 euros maximum, so if it's less, it's less, and up to 7 days for additional support to make sure that all students can access this top-up. However, I think it's also important to reflect on the role that other institutions can have. It doesn't have to be always the European Commission paying for everything. I think that Vito will agree with me on that. So it's also important that the national level, regional level, universities step up. And also, as I think Emmanuel already said, we have great practices around Europe. University of Utrecht is offering almost 200 euros top-up. Many regions in Europe are already offering financial support. So we all have a role to play. And finally, in this part, I also want to call out a bit companies, because train companies, bus companies also have a role supporting green travel of young people. As also Emmanuel mentioned, we submitted a proposal for a new Erasmus Plus ticket. Unfortunately, the first application was rejected for a pilot project, but we'll continue to build on this idea of an Erasmus Plus ticket that can make a sustainable travel more accessible and easier to navigate for students. And then the more thought-provoking reflection, especially in the context of the alliances, which is very relevant. I think that we need to look at green, like the green mobility concept, not only as something related to how we travel, but also about how we reflect on our experiences and how we give students the skills, the competences to navigate the crisis. So our proposal is to consider including the green travel part of the mobility experience as part of the experience itself, and encourage students to reflect on it and to gain recognition for it. So if I have a student going from Bulgaria to Brussels, as I had the opportunity to do recently for one of our ESN trips, why not recognizing that time, asking the student to prepare a report, and then recognizing the credits and the time that the student has spent preparing that. So this is applicable for both long-term mobility, but even more importantly, for short-term mobility like VIPs. Why not taking some more days and include the green travel part as part of the learning components of the mobility experience? As long as we ask students to reflect, to present to their colleagues, we can achieve something very meaningful, because as all of you who have done green travel know, green traveling is also about reflecting about infrastructure, about freedom of movement, about solidarity, about cohesion. And I think that if we use this as a push factor to motivate more students, we'll be able to make a lot of progress. And then also connected to that, the importance of fostering green volunteering. Only 7% of students volunteer on exchange. However, there are hundreds of local NGOs, associations doing fantastic things related to the green transition. Why don't we push a bit more green volunteering so the majority of students engage with environmental topics, which can help them also to connect with the local community on exchange. To facilitate all these processes, we have our Green Erasmus portal that you can access with a lot of activities, guidance for students. You can submit also experiences. We're going to be gathering content like for the next few months. So please do use it and promote it among your students and among your universities in general. And you can also see here that the students, besides the ones that I shared, have a lot of suggestions on the kind of things that universities can do. Finally, I would like to invite you all to come to our conference for the Erasmus Goes Green project that will happen in Brussels on the 21st. And we also have reimbursement if you come traveling green to the conference. So for those of you who might be close, please do join us. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much for the opportunity and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Juan. Very interesting presentation that also combines some aspects that we have seen in the two previous speeches, like green mobility, the mobility itself, but also the education to green and to sustainability. Thank you so much. So we have time. Well, we are a little bit behind schedule, but it was really worth waiting for the first round of Q&As. So maybe we can start and allow ourselves a few minutes to see if indeed there are questions from the audience here in the room. Yes, in the back. The microphone will come to you. Introduce yourself and then raise your question.
Okay. Hello, I'm Roberta. I came from University of Pavia. I was particularly interested in virtual mobility since, of course, Erasmus experience cannot be completely shifted to virtual mobility because, like you said, a lot of students after Erasmus say that they've changed, and I would have said me as well. I was an Erasmus student in Denmark. It was amazing. I cannot explain it. It was really training for me. But I was thinking, would it be possible in the future to use virtual mobility to increase language skills? Because I think students will be interested, maybe to shift a course from a university to another one, maybe taking a German class course from a German university directly on virtual mobility.
Maybe the colleague from the Commission can indeed respond on the possibilities to sort of pick different possibilities for virtual exchange and how this is handled in the current program. Vito?
Yes, I thank you for the question. I must perhaps add that, as you probably know, I mean, I've joined the DGEAC again after 5 years in a different post, so I'm not completely familiar on the recent developments. But I mean, my common sense makes me think that such an option could also exist. I mean, the possibility of having some virtual mobility and having a language a training with a university in another country just to improve the linguistic competencies. But again, I'd rather not give any certain answer. Maybe colleagues Emmanuel or Juan know better because they've been involved in this more intensely in the last couple of years. So I leave it up to them to respond if they have any additional points. Juan.
Yeah, Juan, indeed.
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's a very good question, right? I think there is a need to offer complementary internationalization pathways for students, right? Like, it's important that we don't see learning mobility as a one-off experience, but as part of a broader pathway in which we get students to learn how to work together, work collaboratively, etc. What is important is not to create a exclusive debate in which we think about, oh, we're going to have, as I think Manuel explained it perfectly, right? Oh, we're going to have more virtual exchange instead of having more mobility, because there's so much to do in terms of internationalizing the curriculum. Many students, even when they go on mobility, they don't get used to work collaboratively with their peers. And this is so important for the job market, for social cohesion. So if we manage to create, say, higher education pathways that complement different ways to interact with colleagues from all over the world, that would be really reaching. Always prioritizing, of course, physical mobility, because it has proved to be the most impactful way of bringing people together. So that's our take in the topic.
I don't know if, Emmanuel, you want to elaborate further, because you indeed mentioned that after the survey performed by the Coimbra Group on the impact of the COVID-19, virtual exchange has also become one of the solutions, not just to, let's say, the green mobility aspect, but also more sustainable ways of teaching and learning. Emmanuel?
Well, first of all, I fully agree with what Juan just described. And what I was spontaneously thinking when I heard the question is that, of course, virtual exchange, the same as this now sustainable mobility, we're at the very beginning of it somehow. So everything is to be invented. And about what you were asking about taking language classes through virtual exchange, yeah, I would repeat what Juan has just said. We are now in the process of inventing different ways of internationalization. Well, it's not recent. Internationalization has evolved throughout the past decades. And the interest we see, I did not comment on that for time constraints, but the interest we see also now in the Coimbra Group for the blended intensive programs, I think shows that appetite for a wide diversity of international experiences, combining short-term mobility, virtual exchange, more impactful long-term mobilities, and learning language throughout this.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Maybe I should also recall that because several people here in the room are actually also experts in the Erasmus Plus program. And the new program also now is going to allow more and more of what we call the blended mobility, which means that the students could start their mobility in a virtual manner, then do a physical mobility, and even sometimes when they're back home, continue the same type of mobility, but again in a virtual manner. So basically now we see that this sort of continuous ways of being mobile will be more and more developed. And this is part also of the challenges that we are currently developing within the EC2 Alliance, but also other alliances have also started to work on this. And maybe this is actually the best way to move to the second part of this higher education roundtable, because now we will have concrete examples from other alliances and also our own EC2 Alliance on how indeed to foster the greener mobility. And as you will hear, actually part of the solutions or part of the examples will also come from, for instance, developing a virtual campus. So in a way, I think it comes also part of the response to the question, which was indeed very relevant. So before we move to the next part of the speeches, I just want to be sure that there are no further questions from the room at this point. Well, if not, then we can move, and thank you first to, again, the first three speakers. Thank you very much. And we can move now to the contributed part, where we have, and we are very happy and thankful to some of the sister alliances that agreed to participate to the roundtable. There are 3, in addition to EC2U. We will have a colleague from UNITA, another one from Eurotech, and actually Una Europa. So I will now welcome the first invited speaker from another alliance. So this is Cristina Kojokaru from UNITA. Good afternoon again, Cristina. And you will actually give an example in your case about fostering green practices and sustainability through rural mobilities in UNITA Universitas Monsius. So Cristina, the floor is yours, and you will share your screen.
Yes, thank you very much, and hello everyone. I will also start the full screen option right now. Okay.
Thank you.
So hello everyone, I'm Cristina Kojokaru and I work within the UNITA office at West University of Timișoara. And I'm really glad to be here today with you and to be able to share with you some ideas and some initiatives that we are developing within UNITA Universitas Monsium, which is the European University Alliance that has now a good practice example in this session. So in this presentation, I'm really glad to focus on both parts that are included in the topic of today's roundtable. On the one hand, on how we can reimagine mobility, because the initiative that I will present is a new form of mobility that we are developing within our alliance, but also not only on how we can reimagine mobility, which is a desiderate that a lot of European university alliances have, but also on how we can have a green and also a sustainable approach in doing so, and in this initiative of reimagining mobility. And also, I think that this presentation comes as a good continuation of the previous presentation, and especially on 2 points that Juan was raising in his previous presentation. One of the points refers to the fact that when we speak about green mobilities, we shouldn't only focus on the travel part, but also a lot on the content part, on the activities that are also developed during the mobility. So this initiative that I will present to you in a few seconds focuses a lot on the green aspect that's included in the activities of the mobility. And also the second part, as a follow-up of Juan's presentation earlier, this type of initiative can come in the category of green internships that Juan was referring to, when students, international students, can have the opportunity to interact and to work with local organizations, to interact with the local communities more, and not only be in the international bubble like it often happens when students have international mobility. Okay, I'm also trying to move to the next slide, but I think I'm having difficulties in that. Yes. So just very briefly, some details about who we are as an alliance. So we are UNITA Universitas Monsium, which is an alliance from the second wave of European university alliances. We are composed of 6 comprehensive and research universities from 5 countries, each of us with different sizes and different trajectories. And all in all, the UNITA community is composed of more than 160,000 students and 13,000 staff members. Who we are from west to east. We are University of Beira Interior in Portugal, University of Zaragoza in Spain, University of Po and Pays de la Dour, and also University of Savoie-Mont-Blanc, both of them in France, University of Torino in Italy, and West University of Timișoara in Romania. And a very important aspect to be mentioned, besides the universities that are part of the alliance, we also have a series of very good local partners, local associations that we are with whom we are developing a series of initiatives, and the UNITA Rural Mobility Initiative that I will present today is also one of those initiatives that are constructed in a very, very good collaboration with the local partners. And when I say local partners, I'm referring to local associations, local organizations, NGOs, public authorities, policymakers from the territories, and so on. Then very briefly, if we look at what brings us together and what are the values that bring us together in the Alliance in Unita Universitas Montium, of course, we have as a goal to contribute to the development of our societies and also of our territories. And all of our universities that are part of the Alliance are located in rural and mountain cross-border territories in the 5 respective countries. All of us are coming from countries that have a Romance language as a speaking language, so we use this technique called intercomprehension to be able to understand each other. So besides English, which is of course intensely used, we are also using our own languages. We have which are all coming from the Romance language family as a means of understanding each other and as a means of communication. And also in terms of the main areas that we are focusing on, human education and also on a research aspect, I would name the renewable energy, cultural heritage, and circular economy as core subject areas that are used in developing a lot of the initiatives within our alliance. And very briefly, of course, we have a set of core values that we are using and that we are keeping in mind when developing new initiatives and in all of our activities. And of course, these are also values that were kept in mind when developing the UNITA Rural Mobility Initiative. And I would refer here just very briefly to the ideas of green type of mobilities, also having always a sustainable approach and also an inclusive approach in developing all our activities and all of our initiatives. And I will just go now to the main content of our presentation, which is actually presenting you the UNITA Rural Mobility Initiative. And very briefly, what is it? The UNITA Rural Mobility Initiative is a program of international internships. And through this type of international internships, we are trying to bring highly qualified and motivated university students into organizations and also companies that are working in the rural areas from each of the locations where our universities are located. So as a difference to other type of international internships, this type of rural mobilities are focused on the local territory. So these internships are not taking place in the urbanized areas where our universities are located, but rather in the territories that are associated to the geographical areas where our universities are located. As an inspiration for this initiative, we had the Rural Erasmus Mobilities, which is an initiative that was implemented by one of the universities in our alliance, and that is University of Zaragoza in Spain, who developed this initiative in collaboration with the local authorities in Spain. So we took this initiative that they had developed and we expanded it to the entire alliance and to all the other universities and countries that are participating in our alliance. Through this type of internships, basically students, participants can have an experience that can vary from 3 weeks to 2 months in one of the organizations that are located in the rural territories connected to our universities. And to put it very briefly and short, this type of initiative has a twofold objective. So on the one hand, we are focusing on the student and on helping them to consolidate their competencies and also, of course, improve their employability chances. But also we are focusing on having a contribution to the development and also to the sustainability of various rural and mountain territories from our regions. Also, of course, this type of program is aiming to create new synergies in education, in entrepreneurship, also in research, and overall to try to have a positive impact on the rural and also on the mountain areas in Europe overall, because as you have seen, our members are located all over Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, and Western Europe also. Some key points that are very important when speaking about the rural mobilities, and I'm also trying to move to the next slide, but I think it won't work. So some key points from the UNITA Rural Mobility Initiative. One very important key point is the fact that we are really focusing on having a very good relationship and having a more involved type of collaboration with the rural areas from the regions that our universities are located. This type of initiative also is an initiative that offers new opportunities for university students because it also contributes to the inclusion part. So on the one hand, it can offer a type of mobility that, a type of short-term mobility that maybe a lot of students can access. Particularly those students that maybe would not qualify for long-term mobility. So this type of mobility, which is a short-term mobility, would be a better suit for them. And also considering the type of activities that are organized there, it definitely offers a new type of opportunity that they maybe couldn't access otherwise. It also aims to have an impact on combating depopulation because, again, we are speaking about mobilities that take place in rural territories, in mountain territories that are immensely affected by depopulation in all of the areas that we are speaking about. Also, this type of initiative, it means to also contribute to decreasing the average age of small municipalities because, again, as I said, depopulation and aging is quite an important aspect in the communities that this type of mobility takes place. And of course, last but not least, this type of initiative can also give visibility to the companies, to the organizations that are located in the rural areas that we are cooperating with, and those can help to foster their growth and also to develop the community in the various areas that this initiative is being developed. And also, since I know that
could I ask you
should be very brief.
Could I ask you to conclude because you are already over time? Thank you.
Exactly. I know that I should have a very brief presentation, so I'm just using the principle of a picture that can speak 1,000 words. And I just have a slide here that can present some of the activities that the students were engaged in. We have been implementing this initiative for the past 2 years, actually for the past 2 summers, because all of these internships take place over summer. And these are some pictures from the activities that our students have been engaged with in the local territories and with the local and mountain partner organizations in the region of Serra da Estrela in Portugal, also in the region of Pyrenees Mountain that is at the border between Spain and France, in the region of the Alp Mountains that is at the border between Italy and France, and also in the region of the Banat Mountains and Carpathian Mountains in Romania. So I will conclude with that. I will give you also my contact details in case they are useful for further communication. And if you have any questions or remarks, I'm here to address those probably at the end of the panel, right?
Thank you very much, Christina. And while the colleagues will probably applaud, I will also ask the next speaker to start sharing, and I will introduce yourself. So the next speaker is from the Alliance Eurotech, and this is Janina van Hees. And Janina, you will speak about building a joint virtual campus, which is also what we have started to discuss a little bit before. Please.
Yes, thank you very much. So nice to meet you. Janina van Hees, indeed, my name. I work at Eindhoven University of Technology, and I'm representing the Eurotech Engineering University today. We are also an alliance from the second wave, just like the previous speaker. And well, as you may know, so we started our alliance in the middle of the pandemic. It was deep lockdown when we started to think about what could a joint campus be. So the joint campus is something at the heart of what we want to do. We want to offer engineering education to our students. And then looking at virtual options was actually a very logical thing. So just very quickly, moving to the next slide is a bit problematic. Just to show you, this is our alliance. We have 6 partners in 6 different countries, and it's about engineering education of the future. So they are all technical universities. So as we were in the lockdown and we were thinking of how can we build something of a joint campus, we looked at options to work together virtually, virtual mobility. And we wanted something to be very tangible and visible very quickly for the students. And they were all following education from home anyway at that moment. So we said, well, let's build this joint course catalog. If everyone contributes a handful of courses that we're giving, that we're teaching online anyway at this moment, and we can make a nice array of courses that students will be able to take from each other's campuses. So we built this catalog. We put it together in very little time, actually. Started with 59 courses in the first run, and as that worked out quite nicely, we decided to have a run every half year. So every semester, we're publishing new courses. Everyone's contributing these courses, and then students of all the partner institutions can register for these courses and take the courses in an either online or hybrid manner. They are so far all English language courses, and we're addressing both the bachelor and the master phase. So we've just, in the third run now of the course catalog, which contained a bit more than 100 courses, and more than 500 students registered for participation in one of these 100 courses in the most recent run. So actually the uptake is quite nice so far. Just very quickly, this is what it looks like. It's very simple in a technical sense. We started with something quite manual, actually, by just collecting the courses and publishing PDFs with the detailed information. We started bottom up, seeing what we have, what courses we have, what teachers we have that would want to be contributing, and just offer those courses to the students. Since then, we have developed into a more strategic focus of saying, well, what we would like to move to subject areas that each of the 6 partners offer, and these are mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science. So we are now working towards a more structured offer of those areas, and also trying to arrange the pre-recognition for these areas. Actually, if you look at the areas that we offer so far, the computer science is our big powerhouse. Really, a lot of students are interested in that. And a bit surprising to us, actually, the language courses that we also offer is also very high up. And that's surprising in the sense that we are technical universities. So language isn't something that's part of our curriculum. But the fact that our students are interested very much in taking language courses online, it's very promising, I think, to that this could also play a role in preparing a later physical exchange, perhaps. It does open up minds, or it shows that the minds are already open of our students to move to other countries as well. So, of course, now the pandemic has subsided. Let's hope it keeps that way. And we do see in the most recent run of the catalog that we are moving a bit from online to hybrid. So whereas in previous runs, really the majority of courses was offered completely online, we see now more hybrid constructions where the home students are actually in the classroom, and then there's a camera to connect the Eurotech partner students to that same class. So what are we telling students? What's in it for you? The why. And we tell them these 2 arguments. So we do position it as a low-cost, environmentally friendly way to have some kind of an international experience. And as some previous speakers have already said, it should always be complementary to a real physical experience. It doesn't replace it. But it's an offer you can make to a student that may not be in a position to go for a longer exchange. Well, it's a complement. And we also have the argument, why do we do this? Why do we organize this joint campus? It's because we can offer our students opportunities to take a course that it's not in the curriculum at their home university. So that's the big strength, that we have 6 partners, 6 technical universities, and we can put our highlights into this course catalog, and so have a lot of extra opportunities for our students. I'm concluding with this one, just to give you some experiences that we've had in running this virtual exchange program so far. I think it's a very good thing that we do it in an alliance with partners that know that have developed a way of working together and of approaching their students. And students do give back to us that they really do value the opportunity, and they are signing up in quite significant numbers. So that's really very good. And they do see both of these arguments that I have given before, so of the international experience and of the extra technological courses they can take. There is a problem with dropout. So there is a significant percentage of students that register, but then either don't start the course or don't make it to the end. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them being in our academic years that differ very much, and that a student may still be busy with their German course whilst the Estonian course is already starting, but because the academic years don't match, there's a conflict there, or actually that the schedule is known too late, and then it turns out to conflict with what you're doing at your home institution. And they do also tell us that they really want this pre-recognition. So they want to be sure that what they do in these virtual campus, that they can get the credits and that they will be recognized in their home program. So, and that's not that easy to organize because we don't work with the elaborate process that an Erasmus program has with learning agreements. We don't do that because it's meant to be a low threshold, quick way of having some kind of virtual experience. So, well, finally, so the pre-recognition is something for us to keep working on. Also, just the quality of the hybrid setup. So very simply, the audio, the video, but also the way the teacher knows how to deal with an online audience next to a real life on-campus audience. That does require keeping improvements. And we're figuring out how can we make the virtual students really feel part of what's happening in such a virtual course. But for instance, by organizing a welcome session first, or by didactically taking care that they are included in what's happening in the session. Yeah, so this is the quick impression I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah. Well, the questions will come later.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now it's a pleasure also to welcome the representative from the Una Europa Alliance, and this is Francesca Valente, and you will speak about innovative, inclusive, and sustainable mobility opportunities of the future, reflections from Una Europa. Francesca, please.
Is made by, at the moment, 11 European universities from Spain to Finland, from UK to Italy, so covers, I would say, the whole Europe. And just at a glance, the alliance is made by a lot of students, more than 500,000, and then 68,000 academic and professional staff. We have 38 associated partners in the last European financed project. And we have our main focus areas, which are cultural heritage, data science, European studies, One Health, and sustainability. And I was quite keen to put our focus areas in the presentation because, as you can see, the last two, One Health and sustainability, can be strictly related to the topic of this roundtable, even because I've heard from the previous presentation about the importance of having not only strategies for a greener mobility and inclusive mobility, but also content-led sustainable mobility. Our mobility strategy. Una Europa have this priority of built-in pathways that are broad, easier in the field of collaboration for students and staff. but also to further develop and integrate virtual and blended mobility opportunities in order to deliver mobility at scale. And of course, the pandemic has been a big driver to make us have virtual mobility experience within the Alliance and to think and design blended mobility opportunities in some of our focus area. We are still working and implementing such experiences. But last year, we started reflect about the importance of overarching joint strategies, also on sustainability and climate protection, and on diversity and inclusion. And the result of this reflection has been the joint work done by the Una Europa Affordably Abroad Task Force and the Mobility Cluster, which I'm chairing at the moment. What we have done, we have created this Affordably Abroad Task Force, which is actually a group, student-led, but supported by professional staff. And the task of this group has been to reflect and to brainstorm about how to make mobility more affordable, more inclusive, and more sustainable. So the group was led, as I said, by students who had some workshops together, just students, and made an online survey reflecting. When I talk about students, I'm talking about the Una Europa student community and student representatives within the task force. Students actually created this online survey and presented the main issues that they would like to brainstorm on, which are these one that you can see in the slide: information and support, studies, living and finance, social life and discrimination, as the issues that they would like to tackle with professionals in order to make mobility better and more affordable, and so on and so forth. It was very interesting because after this survey, and we had these joint meetings with students and professionals, and this was this brainstorming where students were actually providing us with some ideas on how to make mobility more affordable and greener and inclusive, of course. And then we, and when I say we, I mean professionals, understood that the main issue that we had to tackle at that moment was communication, because most of the ideas that students had were already implemented in each Una universities. For instance, some initiatives to foster green transport, bike sharing, or discounts for public transport, for instance, or other things were actually already implemented in each Europa university, but students didn't know. And I have to say, and I have to admit, that also professionals from the mobility clusters didn't know of some initiatives maybe activated by other areas or of their own universities. So we have decided to take all these ideas put from the students and then to study them and understand, first of all, what we already had and put all together in a student guide. We have decided to create a website where our students have at a glance and all in the same place, all the information about how to study at one of the Una Europa universities for exchange, so especially for mobility, but also for degree seeking. So this is the first product and very tangible product that you can navigate on Una Europa website about this strong commitment of talking with students. And I've been particularly glad today to listen from the representative from Erasmus Student Network that before starting thinking about what students want, we should ask them, what do they want? And maybe start helping them from small things that maybe we can share some ideas that maybe we have in Bologna have been very useful in Leuven, or ideas from Helsinki now have been implemented in Bologna. So I think this is the added value of being in an alliance, and I'm sure that my colleagues here can, of course, agree with me that some of the best part, even when we talk about mobility, or especially when we talk about mobility, is to be together and share good practice, and of course listen to the students, which is, I think, the best thing we did, and we will continue hopefully in the near future under the new funded project to continue on this path. And we are already thinking to have more interaction with students and start implementing those ideas that are not a reality already in our universities, and maybe to have joint initiatives to make it a reality. That's my presentation. I hope it will maybe create some questions or comments. And if you would like to have more resources and more information in here, you can find in the presentation that I think that will be shared, or the links.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you for this very interesting testimony. As you can all see, we have invited speakers that are all very passionate about the topic. The drawback is that we are just completely beyond schedule, but okay, we'll manage. We would like to present now the last study case, which is from our own alliance, DC2U. So a first introductory comment from our colleague Heather Hunt, who's next to me. You are from Poitiers, and you are a member of the work package number 2, which is about EC2U culture and campus life. You will explain what it is about, and then we have a video with students directly speaking about their experience on green mobility. Heather.
Yes, indeed. We thought it was very relevant to actually hear from the students who performed a green mobility experience by traveling from Poitiers to Coimbra with the Green Mobility Program that was launched by the municipality of Poitiers. So very briefly, this program aims to foster green mobility and multicultural exchanges across Europe, and notably with the twin towns. Sorry. And providing these opportunities to students actually allows them to create a long-lasting community that is actually around shared values of eco-responsible practices and sustainability. And I think this is particularly important today, and that is why we wanted to share with you the experience of these students that traveled in May 2022 by bus, stopping by Salamanca and Coimbra, and therefore sharing with the EC2 community as well. So yeah.
Now we have a video from the students.
Climate change is important to me because it's our future. It's something that we're seeing a lot lately, and that we sort of have to think about every day, really. Well, I do anyway, because you think, if I don't do something today, in the future I'm not going to be able to, well, live, basically.
Yeah, true. We are affected by it currently. It's not something that's just coming, but we're seeing little bits of it, like in summer when we see overheating, forest fires, and little things that change that we didn't notice like 5 years ago. It worries me, actually. That's why it's something I always think about, and it's in the top of my list.
Being a responsible student for me would be taking small actions every day to do something for the planet. For example, I walk to the university because I don't live very far, instead of taking a bus or driving or cycling to the school.
Defi Coimbra was a trip organized by, we organized it ourselves, but it was a challenge given by the mayor of Poitiers, where they were offering aid, transport.
Well, they were funding the actual...
They're offering funding to students who are willing to come up with a plan. It was not even just students; it's people. It was anybody who was willing to come up with a plan to go to Coimbra eco-responsibly. I find it was really, really educational, eye-opening, because we got to learn about the dynamics of traveling together, making decisions that impact the trip together with regards to transport. And then also, I think it also tested our personal comfort zones, our limits, what we could take, what we couldn't take. And also the meetings were really rich because we met the EC2U ambassadors in Salamanca who were really friendly.
Yeah, I definitely would do it again with green mobility. I thought it was new to me. It wasn't, I hadn't done it quite as much as you had. But it was definitely fun because we got to meet even the people that we met on the actual buses.
Every group was different. Like when we first met them in Salamanca, the energy that you receive from the students, and then how they're just dynamic. They want to let you try this. Let's go here. Let's show you this. It was really pop. And it was also the same in Coimbra because we also got to experience a week called Las Quemas de las Fitas, a festival where it's literally the burning of the ribbons. It's to welcome first-year students and to say goodbye to fourth-year students. Where there's a parade with floats and partying and just this mingling with students. And we also go to practice our languages, Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I go in Spanish?
Prefer Portuguese.
Tengo una preferencia para español. He encantado este viaje de Coimbra porque me trae mucho experiencias que não havia antes.
Sim, e eu gosto muito de encontrar as diferentes estudantes das universidades, que foi em Salamanca ou em Coimbra, foi muito simpático e eu gosto muito.
I think for the experts, what we could do is just insist on giving alternatives to young people and inciting young people to participate in green mobility. I feel like if we repeat it enough times, it will get to our heads. Because that's, for example, in a capitalist world, that's how advertising works. They keep repeating the something. We keep seeing an advertisement on the TV. Finally, people go and buy something. So if we keep talking about this, I think it will incite students and even young people to think about it as an option. We just need to have enough of it going around, enough of this message being passed around.
No, I completely agree with that. The actual education part of telling us different ways that we can, maybe classes on, because there are things that we sort of learn but don't, like recycling, and they put these things in place and we don't exactly know how to use them, or projects that we can put in place. I think definitely educating people on the subject would be something to do, maybe just a small class on different ways we could impact the world.
Just organizing and also taking time to step away from profit making and just think about the bigger picture too. I know it's easier said than done, but I believe that it can be done. It's just a decision we need to make.
Thank you to the students. Yeah, we decided actually to really directly give the voice to our students, because basically what you just said, what you just seen, is I think, and probably Juan in particular will be particularly happy, because we have just seen the perfect example of what you were actually describing, Juan, that it's not just about being green, it's also being more connected to the people when you do the mobility. And that's indeed something that you all mentioned, all the speakers, that indeed it's not just about making mobility more green, it's about making mobility more inclusive, more insightful. And this is what all the alliances in particular, but other stakeholders like Coimbra Group and others and ESN are really trying to reach now, a new way to be mobile. Basically, this is indeed why we said reimagining mobility. So, well, we in principle have no real time available, but I think it could be interesting to still have a few questions or reactions from the audience here. So do we have questions or comments from the room here? Yes, I see students, and it's important to give you the voice. So please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hello, I'm Richard Kindler. I'm a master's student in photonics from the Friedrich-Schiller University of Vienna, and I've got a question regarding the UNITA rural mobility. are those mobilities only open to students with fields of studies related to the work of the rural organizations, or can all the students participate in those programs?
So Christina, quick response, please.
So thank you for the question. So I hope I understood it correctly. Your question was whether these internships are open to students from the subject areas or the field of study that is covered by the local organizations. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in our course, in the course that we are opening for students to apply to, we are drafting some student profiles. So over there, we are just trying to emphasize the type of skills that the different roles in the different local companies or local associations are searching for. And those skills or those abilities can really vary and can cover a broader fields of studies. So from, I don't know, history, cultural studies, languages, to even archaeological studies or chemistry, biology, biodiversity. So the fields of studies covered are quite broad.
Thank you very much. Do we have other questions in the room? Yes. Introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Julia, a local coordinator of C2U for the University of Pavia. And actually mine was not really a question, like more a comment. I really like the initiative done by the FI Coimbra. So the student that from Poitiers went to Salamanca and then Coimbra. When I read the article on the website, I was like really surprising, and I really forwarded it to the municipality of Pavia. So hopefully next year, Pavia, the students from Pavia could join this green initiative. And I really like that the topic of green mobility is here in the higher education, and that we talk also on EC2U about that. We presented in the plenary, so UniPV is really keen on and focused on that. And I think we should promote actually all the alliance to make, because one of the aim of the C2U is to foster mobilities, but then we know how it takes time and how much we spend on energy to come to the forum and all other initiative. So we should work to make even us to being here all the time more greener, the mobility. So, but it's already good to talk about that. So thank you to the presenter and everybody to be here.
Thank you, Julia. Of course, indeed, what we are currently developing for the students should be also available to the staff. Green mobility is for all, in principle. So do we have some last questions or comments from the room? But it could be also that the panel members themselves want to interact, although we don't have much time. But if this is the case, it's really now or never, should I say. So here in the room, I think that we all had a very long day, but online, yes, Emmanuel?
Thank you, Ludovic. I had a question for Janina about, do you have an idea of the proportion of students from the whole student body of your alliance that have participated in these virtual courses?
At the moment, it's just under 1%.
Okay, and do you have an objective maybe in the future?
Well, we have the objective that I think all European alliances have, that 50% of our students should have some kind of mobility experience. So that's, of course, a very, very high ambition. And we are devising a long-term vision on what percentage of that would have to be virtual. And we think about half. What percentage should be long-term physical? And we think about